Qatari women, the expectations around marriage are particularly stringent. They are encouraged to marry within their nationality, tribe, and social class, a narrowing of options that makes finding a compatible partner significantly more challenging. While men in Qatar have the freedom to marry non-Qatari women, societal norms discourage women from looking outside their own cultural circles, even as the pool of eligible Qatari men continues to shrink. This creates a paradox. Women are told to aspire to success and independence, yet they are also expected to fulfill traditional roles as wives and mothers. The conflicting demands can leave many women feeling trapped, as their accomplishments are overshadowed by societal judgments about their marital status. A growing number of Qatari men are seeking partners abroad, marrying women from different nationalities who may be perceived as more flexible or less bound by cultural traditions. This trend, driven by both personal and societal factors, has profound implications for Qatari women. With fewer men available within their cultural sphere, many women find themselves sidelined in the marriage market. This is not a matter of choice, but of circumstance, a reality that often goes unspoken in public discourse. The emotional toll can be significant, as women face not only loneliness, but also societal scrutiny for remaining unmarried.
Wait a minute, hold on, wait a minute. Did that video just say that the men were leaving to find less traditional women? Damn, well shit, we might well go ahead and swap them up. Shit, send the American women over there. God, what the hell? Wait a minute, you telling me they are leaving to find less traditional women?
That what you heard?
That's what that's what he said.
He did say that, less traditional and bound by their culture.
He said not bound by traditions, so I guess that kind of does mean less traditional.
In their culture.
In the culture, yeah.
God, what the hell? This world is something else, boy. I tell you.
The grass always seemed greener. Like people always think the grass greener.
Make more mixed babies.
Oh shit.
And that's
it's like the families don't allow the women to be less traditional. So is it the people like the older, like their parents, grandparents, is it their elders who's not allowing them to be more than what is considered cultural and traditional?
Your parents are the ones who marry you. Your parents, your father is the one who marries you. So
a lot of the people their age is probably growing out of tradition, whereas her parents is making her stay in tradition, like she's not being able to evolve. It sounds like
the parents of boys are trying to be more. Go ahead.
It just sounded like, based on what they said, because if it's based on the parents, because I thought it was society at first, but then you said it's based on the parents. So it seems like the men are having new ways of thinking, wanting to do things new ways, because men have the freedom to do whatever. So the men of these women generations, they're having new ideas. They want to do things different, whereas the fathers of the women, they're not on board with, I guess, what the new age men want.
Right. A lot of men, they feel too restricted. They don't want to be like their father and grow up with a Arab woman or a Qatari woman and have all the rules and be strict and always live like that. A lot of them fetishize Eastern European women like Azerbaijani, Russian, Ukrainian, Swedish. They fetishize this look and this attitude that these women have. They see it as cool. I don't know what to say, like cool. And at least they won't feel old, because they feel old when they're with Qatari women. They're like, oh, it's so restricted. She's always going to tell me to be like this and be straight, not straight as in not that way, but I have to be straight line all the time. But some of them want to be more free.
So their men are acting like our women.
This is not the majority, so I don't know why this video is saying like this. This is not the majority.
Yeah, because it's like 12%. Like it's not even,
So these men are acting like our women.
They acting like our men. They love toxicity.
Go ahead, Dara.
Oh, Shan, I saw that.
Now I hope you was in here.
Can y'all hear me? Yeah, we get you. Go ahead. I don't, like I said, I don't know whether the narrative of this video is accurate. It's just I can't really connect the dots off what it was saying. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is we able to corroborate any of this stuff on how the reason why the men are going abroad is because they want non-traditional women?
I think people want what they're not normal. What was not their norm, right? You know, I think that, you know, what you're used to is so much cooler to have what you're not used to having. And I think it's just the reverse of what we're seeing here.
How can you say they're used to that?
What do you mean?
They ain't married. How can you be used to something they never had?
No, what I'm saying is, like she said, following the traditions of their fathers, right? So, like going against the grain, so to speak. Something that you're used to seeing, like you want to step outside, you know, do something different.
Like so, Dar, like when I talk about what I went through with my uncles, and they was telling me about the problems they would have with their wives, I desired to get women that were extremely different from the women that they had, as far as we would have different interactions. So, you know, on in a personal level, it may be things that they didn't like about specifically the women in their culture that they were trying to get away from those specific character traits. And I think it's a human thing, really. Like Shan said, it's the grass is greener, and we might look at the women who are popping at it and making a real effort to be done up all the time is just extra. But like Amira said, if that's cool, if they look at that as cool and sexy, that's the equivalent for us of the men trying to find single childless women that are at home willing to serve and be traditional. So I mean, it tracks. It should make sense.
You know what it sounds like to me? Sound like some rebellious spirits. They just rebelling.
That's the same thing I'm saying. That's exactly what I said. It just sounds like
They got the internet.
They got the internet.
They seen some shit online and was like, I want that.
Absolutely.
Fuck you, Dad.
Yeah.
It sounds like some rebellious spirits. They got a rebellious spirit.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I'm unable to connect.
The men are being rebellious.
In one breath, y'all saying that the men always, according to the narrative, the men have always been able to marry and vet women outside of his tribe. He don't have the same restrictions as the woman, culturally. But then y'all are saying he does have the same restriction. That's the reason why he going outside of his tribe. So it's just
I help you. Men, just like in America, the men play with a certain thing and then they marry a certain thing. Arab men, they want to what's the flavors of the ice cream?
They want to marry the plaything.
They want to see it. They want to feel it because they have never had this opportunity ever in history where they can see all these varieties. They can play with a Russian. They can play with an American. They can play with a Black. They can play with a Latina. They can play with anybody and they can enjoy it. But when they get married, they're not going to marry the Russian.
So the question is, when did they start?
Marriage rate is 12%. They married. I mean, the 12% we're talking about are married.
In other words,
no 90-day fiance.
When did they start? When did it start happening? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Y'all are saying now they can see other women. They can venture into other cultures of women and choose them. Y'all saying that as if this is a thing that just come to pass recently, as if this wasn't something that was in effect.
So, according to the Quran, correct me if I'm wrong, because I got to brush up, but men can marry women from different faiths and bring them in. Women can't marry a man from outside the faith. So on a religious level, they just can't do it unless you're already a Muslim man.
It's called conquering. That's part of conquering. But for McCurtain, it started in the 70s. So back in the 70s, I don't know why this happened. I think it happened when Iran and America were going through something. But from that time in the 70s, Arabs started flooding into the United States. If you guys look at the history, there are so many Saudis who came to America, had children with American women, and went back to Saudi Arabia. There are many half Saudi children in America that were abandoned because They came here for school, and then they did the chaka chaka. They make the goat cheese with Americans, and then they left back to the country and got married to an actual Saudi.
They
And
make
then
the what?
So it sounds like they've adapted to the Western men mind frame then at this point.
They make the what? What you call it?
I think that
I'm not
she's saying
gonna-
it just being men.
I'm
The
not gonna
goat
say that.
So
It's
you
goat
saying
cheese. Make the goat cheese.
so you saying in the 1970s?
Around the
Something
70s or
happened.
80s, that's when it began.
That's when it began. Like when we say it, like what was the catalyst for them in the 1980s that said, oh,
I don't
She
know.
said the 70s, but immigration reform happened off of the civil rights movement, so other people could come into America in abundance. So that would track with that timeline.
That probably is what happened. I don't know. I can't lie and speak out of my rear end on that one. I don't know why it happened, but it happened around that time.
and that's why I don't want to, because I sometimes I like to get meticulous and figure out what actually happened to cause these men to want to say we don't want our woman no more. But right now we're kind of speculating on a movement that happened some back in the 80s or 70s, because now they can catch a flight and be with a different woman now.
But she also made the distinction that they were playing with those women. So they, it's who knows the timeline on how long they play with the women before they come home and actually marry the traditional woman.
But
So
that doesn't make any sense towards the topic, because in that case, if they were coming back to marry their women, there wouldn't be a shortage, right?
Right, they'll still be doing what they're supposed to do, which is you go out there, you sow your royal oats, and then you bring your ass back here and get married. What that documentary is talking about is men who went out there, sowed their royal oats, and said, "I'm gonna stay over here with the royal oats."
And Russians and
you saying that I'm gonna get you, sucker? Was that it? When he said, "I'm not coming home."
Yeah,
that goat cheese box.
Yes, I'm one today.
That
This man
goat
is
cheese.
funny.
That goat cheese.
I'm reading into a chapter where I'm trying to connect something different than maybe everybody's speaking. If we're saying that these men have been exposed to something, and they saying, "Oh yeah, now that we can do this, we're gonna go be with these women," what that tells me is that these men never really wanted the woman that were for them. They were waiting.
They were exposed. So let's just be clear. It's only 12%. It's not
right. This is
like
we talking about a small group of minority of basically
Absolutely.
dudes with a rebellious spirit. That's all it is they saw something and they're rebelling against the traditional norms in their country. That's what it sounds like.
Because didn't it say it's arranged marriages too?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you said it's a minority, but this narrative is painting a picture like this epidemic.
It's not. This is just a video. That's why we.
So now bring me back to my point. The narrative is inconsistent, because let's just say for sake it is true. That means that these guys that were restricted to these women before the movement weren't satisfied with the woman they had. And the moment a movement came and they had access to other women, that was it. Their women don't do it. It's almost like
going so deep.
It's not like they're going off the flesh.
No, it's almost like black. No, it ain't. They marrying outside. So it's almost like let's say black people came off the plantation. Once we got our freedom, our rights, we had access to travel. We had access to be with other races. But even till this day, even with we still marry our women at a higher rate than anybody we marry. To make it parallel to the guys over there, if at the moment we would have allowed in the right to go and travel and marry other women outside our race, we would marry outside our race, and black women wouldn't have no black men to marry. That would be the parallel. That would mean that we were waiting, like we were like the moment we got access to other women, that was over with for them. You get what I'm saying? But that ain't what happened with us. So because we still love ours. So what I'm saying is, if that narrative's true, that means these men originally they didn't want their women.
Look, that's not the same, because 12% I think it's about 12% of us too. So it's the same.
No, he said assume like if we was just to grant the argument that this actually is an epidemic over there. He's just basically saying, okay, let's grant that this dude is making this the video is making this bigger than it actually is. So he's having a conversation on the epidemic rather than what's actually true.
Mm.
Basically,
Isn't that what we do every day?
scenario. You said what, bro?
Isn't that what we be doing every day?
Yeah,
Having the conversation on a
on
small
some extreme.
segment.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
Go ahead, Ali. I think Ali was trying to get in there. Go ahead.
Oh, it just begs the question in my mind, if the men are leaving the country and that percentage is not coming back because they liked the oats that they have soiled over there, what and with the women seeking more independence and being more professionally driven, I wonder what that is like as far as if they've explored dating outside or if it's not allowed, like if they're allowed to date outside of their race at all.
No, they're not allowed. That's what the videos said. And then Amira probably got some insight on that as well.
You cannot. The only way you can
Not
is
law.
if you live outside. If you live outside of the Middle East and you live in America and the family approves. But if you are in Qatar, you cannot marry a non-Qatari.
Yeah, in college, a lot. It's not just Qatar or the Middle East. It's India. Several cultures act that way, where you can't bring somebody home, but you will find in college they dating that and having sex and doing their thing with, black men. It happens a lot, and then they'll be like, "Well, we can't get married because my family won't, won't accept this relationship." That's like a big thing.
So what I see is, if all this stuff is true, and the men know that these women have a restriction, and they still marry outside of race, knowing that the numbers are going to be, it's going to be an epidemic, and these women are going to be lonely. That tells me that
they're degenerate.
They don't give a fuck about their women.
Yeah.
We know you ain't gonna be able to. We know you got boundaries on who you can. You can't go outside of your tribe. There's a scarcity. There's no one left. We're not gonna marry you. No, because I think it's a matter of consideration at that point. Like, your women ain't gonna be able to marry nobody else but you. And you know that. You're aware of it. And you still go and marry outside, leaving them with no one.
Yeah, that's pretty cold. That is pretty cold.
That's damn near borderline criminal at that point.
That's heartless. It should be a rule. But the fact that it ain't a rule would suggest that these men have the courtesy and they would never do that. So therefore, it never needed to be a rule.